But I think new frame of mind for Mazzulla, and I think that set the tone for this training camp to where everybody's positive. Cassell's there, Cassell talking your ear off. Charles Lee, who I thought was kind of a quiet dude, but people are saying like, oh, no, he don't stop talking. So you got two talkers, and also the pressure. And then you can say what you guys think about this. Like, Joe's looking over and seeing two dudes who want to be NBA head coaches. So Joe got to step his game up too. You got two guys who can very capably take over an NBA team. Charles Lee's the next major coaching prospect, right? I mean, it's kind of a wonder. We don't know why Cassell hasn't been hired. We don't know. We ain't heard nothing about Cassell, Sam off the floor. And we heard, I don't know. It's a mystery. And then Charles Lee's on that high list of guys. Charles Lee might be there for a year because whatever job opens next year, Charles Lee's going to get an interview. So that also puts pressure on Joe to step his game up.
The A-List Podcast is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
Hello, everyone. Celtics fans specifically, this is the A-List Podcast. I'm Kwani Lunis, joined by Sherrod Blakely and Gary Washburn. And preseason slowly winding down. They have Celtics at least have one more preseason game before the regular season starts. So this episode, we're going to recap what we've seen so far in the preseason and, of course, look forward to what you're hoping to expect in this upcoming regular season. So let's start with their win over the Knicks on Tuesday. Tatum with 28, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. Jaylen Brown with 17.6 assists and 3 rebounds. Porzingis with 20. The Knicks didn't start any of their starters though. So what did you gain from watching that game, at least from the Celtics perspective? And then what does it say about the fact that the opponent wasn't as worthy as it could have been? I mean, it's still the Knicks, but
well, I just think that Jayson Tatum had a good day in practice. They called it a preseason game, but Jayson had a good practice day, and we always want to practice the way we want to play, and Jayson did that. I mea, he got 28, 8 rebounds, and he could have easily have 40, easily. And so there's not a whole lot I think you can take away in terms of accomplishment other than the fact that they made it through the game healthy. They broke a nice sweat. Some guys were able to do some things, get into a nice little flow, little rhythm. And you're just hoping that, this is just another building block for them heading into the regular season where they are going to have tremendous expectations. And to me, the only thing I can feel good about if you're the Celtics is when you're playing a team that's bad or undermanned, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to handle your business, beat them enough to where the game is never really in doubt or close. And that's what they did to this Knicks, who obviously, they're sitting a lot of their core players for this preseason game.
I thought it was a good effort. The Celtics were, I think, ahead by as much as 27 in the first half, and the Knicks made it. I mean, the Knicks played hard. Like, it was kind of the opposite of last week where the Knicks played their frontline guys, the Celtics backups played really hard and but the Celtics kind of kept them at distance. I think the Knicks got within 9 once in the second half. I know Quentin Grimes, boy, that dude could shoot. He hit 7 threes or whatever. And McBride, I thought had a pretty good game. But I thought they showed they kind of, flex their muscles a little bit where guys are able to, there was a lot of ball movement, a lot of the chemistry they're establishing, and they have still a long way to go to establish this chemistry. But I like the ball movement. I like the unselfishness. I like the emphasis to defense. The most impressive thing I thought with Tatum was his attention to detail on defense. Mm-hmm. Like, he had 28 points in 30 minutes. It was obvious he was trying to get his 3-point shot down. He was emphasizing shooting that long ball, and he hit 4 or 5 of those things. And said he points was not a problem. It was attention to defense that I thought was impressive. I thought Jaylen Brown had his moments, Porzingis. So, and Drew Holiday wasn't really that great. I mean, he was cool, 10 points, I think 4 assists, but he just kind of took a step back and kind of distributed a little bit. So it showed the flex of their muscles when they harness all this together. And I think that it's important to note that that they're not going to get it together by next Wednesday against the Knicks. Like, they could still be plenty good to win that game and to start out hot, but it's going to take 20 to 30 games for them to really get that flow and that rhythm with 2 new starters pretty much. And, the starting lineup, who knows if it's going to be I don't believe in professional sports you should like change the starting lineups depending on the matchup. I think that's kind of a college thing. So let's see if, who knows, Mazzulla might try that. But I think that they'll be good to begin the season, but they're encouraging. If you don't want them to be peak in October, you want them to be peak in April, May, and June. So I think fans should give this team some time to gel, but I think they're gelling and they're taking this whole preseason thing seriously. They're not allowing, guys aren't taking rest days. Guys are practicing hard. So I thought last night was just a microcosm of that. And then, hey, the final game against Charlotte, they're supposed to play their regulars again. So they're taking this thing seriously because they got some rest before the opener. But I think it was an encouraging sign.
So, Sherrod, to your point, it really did look like a practice. Everyone got a sense of the rhythm of the flow for the rookies, the younger players. They got a sense of how they're supposed to be performing throughout this season. But one of the vets, Al Horford, his play, 8 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists. What did you guys think about that performance?
What you got, Gary?
I thought Al blended in. He came off the bench. He's a guy who started his whole career, so we'll see how that goes, him coming off the bench at times. But, the one thing I want to see from Al is that mid-range. And his first bucket was a kind of a reluctant mid-range shot, but it was a mid-range shot. And he was open. They had a small defender on him. He looked around. He's like, okay, I'll shoot it. Boom. Yeah. Shoot the ball, Al. Shoot the ball from the mid-range. Give this team even more options as opposed to only shooting threes or always passing out because you panic. Like, Al, you came into this league as a pretty damn good – he's always been a great defender. But you came into the league as a pretty good offensive player coming out of Florida. You were a good man in the post. You could get those buckets. Go back to that guy. We want to see that guy. We do not want to see reluctant, hesitant Al, only shooting threes. Oh, no. Get in the paint, that little jump hook, little short jumper. Get that down too. Add that to your arsenal. I was impressed by Al Horford, and I think that's what Celtic fans and folks need to see is a more engaged Al Horford, not only shooting threes, but in the paint at the mid-range. You got to have your bigs. You got to keep the other bigs honest. You got to know, you going to leave me out here like this? Boom. Okay, I got you. You going to sag in the paint and wait for Jayson and Jalen to penetrate? Okay, you going to leave me right here? But I'm going to get you every time, as opposed to, looking to pass because he doesn't want to be that guy to take the shot. Don't be a reluctant shooter from that area because I think Al does have a touch.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has touch, and he definitely needs to make his imprint on the game. But for Al, I think that, they've got plenty of guys who can score the basket, and certainly Al is one of them. I was more impressed with just his overall energy and hustle. He made some plays at the defensive end of the floor that are very much in the vintage Al Horford, class, and plays that I wasn't sure if he could make anymore. Hustling for loose balls, balls going out of bounds, and he's able to wrap his arm around, Dante smack the ball off him, go out of bounds. Little things that 37-year-old players typically don't do. And Al did a lot of those things. And that's why I think for him and his longevity, it is better for him to come off the bench. And I think that ultimately that's going to be part of the load management protocol for Al this season, that, more times than not, he's going to come off the bench. I think there may be select matchups where a team has two physically imposing bigs where you maybe throw him in there for that. But there aren't a lot of teams that are built like that. And because of that, I don't see the benefit, a significant benefit of having Al in that starting lineup when, truth be told, I'd much rather see him go against second line guys or play on maybe, the back end of that starting five coming in for Porzingis or coming in for Derek White or someone else, that gives him a little bit more size in that front court. But I thought this was a good performance for Al because he did the little things that they're going to need for him to do this season. And he's showing the ability to do those things and do those things at an effective, high impact level. And as far as coming off the bench, Al, he's got to look, first of all, whether you come off the bench or start, your minutes ain't going to be there like they're used to. So that playing time is not the issue. If anything, if Al has an issue with starting, it would be a signal that Al's ego is a little bit bigger than I thought. Because what they're asking him to do, and Tatum alluded to that, if Al can come off the bench, any of us can come off the bench. So that gave me a sense that, this may not be an experiment. This may be something that as a team they've talked about. And Al has talked about. And I think Al's probably made it clear that I'll do whatever you need me to do, Joe, if it's come off the bench, if it's start, I just want to win. And that's kind of the way Al has carried himself during his time in Boston. So I would be shocked if Al has an issue with coming off the bench. Now, let's be clear. There's a difference between coming off the bench and registering DNP CDs. Now, if he gets one or two of them, oh, hell, we got a problem. Oh, hell, we got a major problem. Mas problema. We got a big problem.
Okay, that's funny.
Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed. That's guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. It absolutely is. The app is easy to use, and you can be on everything from spreads to player props and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston. Kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
So Sherrod, what's second of all?
First of all,
when the brothers say first of all, there's never a second of all. So I'm just second of all. Give us a second of all.
Second of all, if things might get real bad. If he's not playing, Al's going to play because they don't have any other bigs that can play. And I'm not counting your boy Kornet, because the more I see him play, the less impressed I am that he can help this team at all. Yeah. I mean, he just looks. There was a play in the game where he was coming back on defense and he tried to basically come out and defend. And I can't remember which play for the Knicks, but they basically took 3 dribbles and they had blown past him. And fortunately, Al was on the floor, so Al was able to cut off what would have been an easy layup. But Kornet, I think, is going to be a liability in a lot of matchups if he's out there. And to me, why the hell are you playing guys who are potential liabilities for you? There was a reason why my guy. What's that?
No, the thing is, Mazzulla said he was a backup center. And it's like you kind of declared in the backup center, I'm waiting for minutes from Gabriel and Keita. Those are the 2 guys I want to see. We'll see what happens in the last preseason game, but they ain't getting no run. And Luke is. And they kind of and it was interesting. He kind of declared Luke the backup center, and it was like, and I like Luke. Very nice guy. He's a gentleman. Great with us, doesn't take himself too seriously, probably one of the funnier guys on the team because he's got that deadpan, humor. He's very polished young man, obviously out of Vanderbilt University and has been around the league. But it's like, that's going to be your backup center. He's doing that many good things on the floor to where you're going to hand him the job over 2 dudes who are kind of dogs. I like Keita, and I'm getting a lot of the fans are emailing me about Keita, they want to see more of that guy. So we'll see what happens in this final preseason game or whatever, and whether he gets some real look at Keita, because he's on a 2-way contract. But yeah, Sherrod, I'm with you on the Kornet thing. I don't see it. Maybe they see it, obviously, but for Joe to go out on the limb and kind of say he's our backup. Oh, okay, you just handed him the job already? That was interesting. So I think we might be seeing a lot more of Luke Kornet in more of a backup role to Horford and to Porzingis than some people probably want to see.
I think that might be, Gary, why I think they may look long and hard about not going double big so that they can keep Al and Porzingis, playing with each other, but not playing significant minutes with each other, and to keep Luke off the floor. I like I said, Luke he's a good guy, he's a good dude. But when you got the easy pass for everyone that's guarding you, or excuse me, that you're supposed to be guarding, that's not good. I mean, that's not, and he's not physically imposing enough to where you put him out there against a big, he's not going to get tossed around like a rag doll. So, and the thing about shooting, it's great that he can space the floor, but guess what? You got a dude 7'3" who can do that. You got a guy now, Horford, who can do that. You don't necessarily need him to give you that floor spacing when he's on the floor. So if he's not a physically imposing big, and you don't necessarily need him to be a shooter, and he's not, what exactly are you getting out of him? So it'll be interesting to see how things go forward with Luke.
That's a good question. I'm with you on that. I said I'd like to see Gabriel. Gabriel didn't play, neither did Keita. We'll see what happens. I think that last preseason game is a key to see what happens and how they view. Will Gabriel get a roster spot? What about Lamar Stevens? I'm not talking about the even center position with other positions. What about Lamar Stevens? He didn't get any run last night, I don't think. They played, your boy O'Shaper said, along with Banton and kind of like that second unit. I mean, I like Lamar Stevens, so we'll see how this turns out in terms of just the roster. But yeah, like if Luke is your backup center, I think that's a concern.
Facts.
All right. So at this point, the Celtics are 3-1 in these practice preseason games. We have one more ahead of us. But so far, what has been your biggest takeaway, other than Luke Cornett not being the best backup?
I guess my biggest takeaway is just, really, if there was such a thing as the preseason team MVP, it'd be Peyton Pritchard. He's been one of the more consistent players for the Celtics. And yes, we're talking about his offense, but he's been kind of feisty defensively. Like when they gone full court press, he's been among the guys out there pestering guys defensively. So to me, he's been the big takeaway just because of his ability to not just make shots, but make them consistently. We've always known he can shoot, but he hasn't really been as consistent as we've seen him in this preseason. And a big part of that has to do with the fact that he's getting an opportunity. He's not splitting time with 2 or 3 other guys for those minutes. He's actually the guy that they're looking to coming off the bench. And combine that with, some of the struggles, that some of their other, shooters have, guys like, Sam Hauser, who actually started to turn the corner, but for a good chunk of the preseason really wasn't making shots. Peyton has put himself in a great position to be a regular rotation guy once the games start to count.
Biggest surprise, just the overall chemistry and the flow of preseason. No issues. They're working hard. They seem to be all on the same page. It's just there's been no drama. Obviously, last year was the Ime drama and, what happened in that situation, how the players feel. And there was all that drama coming out of training camp where they just went into the season with so much noise. In this situation, there is no noise. There's just like focus on the task at hand, winning the championship, being one of the best teams in the league, winning the East. And I think that focus is something that's, I think, the biggest factor in what I see is that stands out is like guys are like locked in on getting the job done. And I think Jayson said something very astute the other night about Joe. Like he just feels like Joe has more control, more confidence. And it's a different Joe, a different Joe, a kinder, gentler Joe, right? Kinder, gentler Joe. And
it's true.
You sound like a soft Sasquatch, a nice, kinder,
gentler Joe.
A children's book.
Yeah, the fireside chats with Joe Mazzulla.
Gentle Joe wins a chip.
Yeah, Sunday afternoons, an afternoon with Joe, having some, having a glass of lemonade on the porch. I mean, to me, like people always, oh, well, Joe didn't like you, Joe hate you, like Joe didn't hate me. Okay, we was good. Okay, we went at it. And that's fine. And I've gone at it with coaches before. But I think this Joe that I noticed is just more comfortable in his own skin, which is understandable. He's more comfortable with the situation around him, his assistant coaches. The atmosphere is better. I mean, it's hard to coach when, one, you're coaching with Ime's guys. And as much as that they were professionals, Ben Sullivan, my main man, Mike Moser, half a season of Damon Stoudemire, Aaron Miles, Garrett Jackson, like as much as those guys were pros, there's nothing against them. They were all figuring out where the hell they was going to be next year. And you got, I'm sure they're texting Ime who's telling them, hey, fellas, the moment I get another gig, you're coming with me. So, wherever that is, for a minute, remember, it was going to be Brooklyn. So I'm sure you had some of those guys figuring out, okay, am I going to am I going to leave in the middle of the season to go to the Nets? Do I got to find a place in New York? Like, what's going on? And that kind of fizzled. And then Houston, he took 3 guys to Houston. And then Aaron Miles, I think, went to New Orleans. So, coaching with a staff that was kind of had one foot out of the door because they felt like they had to is got to be difficult for Mazzulla. Then Damon Stoudemire, your only old head, former NBA player, former Rookie of the Year, Mighty Mouse, amazing guy. Got to know Damon pretty well during the season. He leaves. He wanted to coach in college again. ACC job, one of the best conference in the world, ACC. Now they invited my Cal Bears. Thank you.
Finally, we're the best because he's in
refund. Can we get a refund?
But he takes an ACC job, so he's gone. So I think and I just think Jayson's saying and Jason's always been a proponent for Joe. And I think that's one of the reasons they didn't let Joe go was Jayson was like, nah, he's my guy. I'm going to stick with this dude. And I think they needed to stick with somebody. I was never on the fire Joe. Now, I will say, if they had lost game 4 against Miami and gave up like they did game 3, it might have been time. It might have been an indication that they gave up on him and they're tuning him out. But they came back and won 3 consecutive games. And then we saw what happened in game 7. Jalen 9 turnovers. Jayson sprains his ankle and they get blasted. But I think that saved his job. But also, Jink, a new staff, new environment, getting his family settled, getting used to has really made him change. And I think Jayson saying that and just saying and pushing them and then being open-minded to not relying so much on the three-pointer, learn how to call timeouts, listening to his players and his staff, playing Peyton Pritchard, taking him out of the doghouse. Because we all saw what happened with him and Grant Williams last year. And I always say, we all love Grant. We miss Grant. Grant got a raw deal last year. Grant's a good NBA player. Not a great NBA player, not a guy who's probably going to be an all-star, but a guy who's essential on a good ball club. And he got a raw deal last year from being in Joe, without whatever reason, why those missed free throws in Cleveland, talking too much to officials, whatever it was, got him in the doghouse. But I think new frame of mind for Mazzulla, and I think that set the tone for this training camp to where everybody's positive. Cassell's there, Cassell talking your ear off. Charles Lee, who I thought was kind of a quiet dude, but people are seeing oh, no, he don't stop talking. So you got 2 talkers. And also the pressure. And then you can say what you guys think about this. Joe's looking over and seeing 2 dudes who want to be NBA head coaches. So Joe got to step his game up too. You got 2 guys who can very capably take over an NBA team. Charles Lee's the next major coaching prospect, right? I mean, it's kind of a wonder. We don't know why Cassell hasn't been hired. We don't know. We ain't heard nothing about Cassell, Sam off the floor. And we heard, I don't know. It's a mystery. And then Charles Lee's on that high list of guys. Charles Lee might be there for a year because whatever job opens next year, Charles Lee's going to get an interview. So that also puts pressure on Joe to step his game up.
These are your hiring goals, they say. They're very aggressive, but when everyone looks to you, you're calm. Why? Because you don't need a miracle, you need Indeed. Indeed is a hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. They streamline hiring with powerful tools that can help you find your matched candidates. With Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resume on Indeed match their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Candidates you invite to apply are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in the search. Indeed does the hard work for you, and they show you candidates whose resume, once again, on Indeed, fit the job description immediately after you post so that you can hire faster. Even better, Indeed's the only job site where you only pay for applications that meet your must-have requirements. Indeed is an unbelievably powerful hiring platform, delivering 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined, according to CLNS in 2019. You can start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/A-list. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit right now at Indeed.com/A-list. Once again, Indeed.com/A-list, and show that support by saying you heard this on the podcast. Indeed.com/A-list. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. You need Indeed.
Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead, Kwani. No, you got it. Go ahead.
Oh, so I was just going to move forward and talk about this rhythm of the team overall. We've seen a lot of full court presses, double teams, blitzing the handlers. So do you think that what we've seen so far, still preseason, is a new brand of Celtics basketball, or is it just good luck because it's preseason and the opponents aren't, again, playing up to the regular season standard that we're used to?
Well, I think they're trying to practice the way they want to play. They know they have to become a more consistently elite defensive team, because you look at their numbers at the end of the season, they're great. They're among the top teams statistically in several categories when you talk about defense, but the eye test tells you differently. The eye test tells you that there have been pockets where they look just absolutely putrid defensively, where they look like they just got thrown together at an AAU tournament or something like that, and never played with each other, and they're expected to be this cohesive group. And other times they look like brothers in arms for decades, where they just lock kids up, at the defensive end of the floor. So I think what you're seeing them is looking at different ways that they can be more connected defensively. And full court pressing is something I thought that they did a good job against New York. And I wasn't so consumed by the results of their double teaming and their tilting and their full court pressing, but just the fact that this was something that they made a priority to do. Joe has talked about that they have to become a better defensive team. And he's talked about his own shortcomings and having prepared them to be a better defensive team last season. And it's pretty clear and obvious that he ain't making that same mistake again, because his inability to really get them to buy into on a consistent basis what they had to do defensively may very well have been one of the factors, as you go back and look at last season, that kept them from getting to the finals. And so Joe, I give him a lot of credit for owning, what he wasn't as great at as he'd want to be, looking at ways to be better in that regard. And I think the proof will be in the results that we see, that this Celtics team is going to be statistically probably where they were or close to where they were a year ago, but there's going to be more consistency with it. You're not going to have the ebb and flow defensively that we saw last year, where they would be incredibly magnificent against, a top 2, top 3 team in the NBA, and just a bunch of strangers in the night when they play a team that's not quite at that level. So that's kind of where they're at. I think, that's why I think their defense is really going to be just the key to unlock all the possibilities for greatness for this team this year.
Yeah, I think the defense is the key, because I think this team is going to score. You got nothing but scores on the floor. But can you mix up your defenses? The whole man-to-man switching everything, that's great. But teams can figure out how to beat that. And what they've learned, I think, from the Miami Heat was it's okay to mix in a zone, a trap. It's okay to mess with the opponent's heads defensively and have them, when Dame Lillard comes down, he's facing a trap that he wasn't expecting, and you're expecting he's got to make a fast decision. He's got to throw the ball. He's got to give the ball up or whatever. He's got to throw it to Connaughton, or you got to lob it over to Brook Lopez, or try to find he's got to do something he probably wasn't expecting to do. It's okay to both some wrinkles and some surprises. And it's not necessarily always going to be as effective as you want to force a turnover, but it could force a rush shot. It could force someone who didn't want to shoot to shoot. It could get the ball out of the hands of Giannis and Lillard, or Jimmy Butler and Hero, or Embiid, and if it's James Harden or whoever, Tyrese Maxey. It can be an effective means of throwing different wrinkles and not being so predictable. And I thought the Celtics last year, one, were too easy to defend, and two, defensively, were switching everything, even in times where they didn't need to, where Jalen should have went with the man that he was guarding instead of switching because the switch got disconnected. Somebody took a quick step to the basket, got fouled, things like that. Things were like, you had your best defender on him, but then he gave it up to a lesser defender, and that lesser defender got scored on. So I think throwing zones, traps, if they can, still maintain that energy, because it's hard to play full court defense. It's hard to play defense for 48 minutes and then concentrate on scoring. If they can do that, they'll be a so much better team than last year.
Defense wins championships. That's what they say. Well,
that was clever, Kwani.
I actually coined that phrase myself.
Yeah, I've never heard that before.
So profound, that Kwani Lunis.
I try to drop some gems every episode.
Oh, you dropped something, all right.
Viewers, listeners. Oh my gosh, the eye rolls. If eye rolls could kill. All right. Well, that's all I have. Do you want to say anything else before we wrap it up?
Thanks for coming out. Good night. God
bless you.
No, I'm looking forward to the actual season to get started. I think we all are. The preseason games, we know this team is good. We know they're experimenting with some things as far as lineups, focus in terms of defensive focus and things of that nature. But I'm really curious to see them get this thing going and playing a team like New York that obviously has something to prove as well. It's not going to be just kind of a walk in the park. They're going to have to play. And that's a great thing to have to come out the gates doing that, particularly having to do it on the road. So looking forward to getting this thing going in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a hell of an exciting season. I think the NBA is just filled with all these storylines and things like that. And I think it's going to be interesting. We'll have to watch out for the roster, how the roster shapes up, or whether there could be some unexpected cuts. I mean, I don't think they have a lot of cuts to make, but we'll see what happens with the cuts and who makes the roster, and if someone has to go to Maine or see how that goes. But I also think that, this team, from what I've seen from just the unbiased opinion, it's just they really are locked in more than I've probably ever seen a Celtic team in the preseason. I'm not saying them the previous team messing around and hanging out and all that. They took care of it. They did their work or whatever, but just being locked in on, as we saw a couple of years ago, Ime's first team started off so 19, 18, and 21, and they were it seemed like they just weren't ready for the season. And then last year, Joe's team started off really fast, and then they kind of hit some skids in December when they lost those back-to-back games to the Orlando Magic, and they got back on. But I think this team understands the importance of, one, the regular season, and the NBA understands the importance because these fools going to have to play now. And we can talk about that, these new rules, and Sherrod's buddy, and we can talk about that, Joe Dumars. One of his close friends is the GM he covered. He spoke to a couple of reporters, including myself, and was like, and Joe laid the rules there. When Joe says something, you listen.
You listen.
Yeah, you listen. Joe ain't playing, right? Joe, one of them old cats, still got that old man strength, so don't step to Joe.
Right.
And he said basically 82 game season, not 62 game season. 2, better All-Star game. 3, the in-season tournaments here and get used to it. Adjust. Quit thinking about this ain't the old days no more. We're going to have an in-season tournament until, unless something really bad goes wrong, this is how it's going to be. So it's going to be an interesting, exciting season, a different season with this in-season tournament. We don't know how that's all going to go, whether the Celtics are going to be in Vegas, how they're going to take that seriously. They should be favored. If you look at their division, their group, Toronto, Chicago, Orlando, and Brooklyn. Like a lot of teams that could bite them, especially Orlando. Watch out for the Magic this year. And because obviously the Magic had no problem beating the Celtics last year. And then Brooklyn is always tricky. So, but the Celtics should be favored to get to the midseason crown championship. We'll see how that goes. But I think it's going to be a fun season. Nothing but excitement. You just pray that all the players, not only themselves, to stay healthy. You don't want no knee. You don't want no guys getting hurt and damaging their chances. You want everybody to stay healthy and have a great season.
Facts.
I 100% agree. Well, that's a wrap.
Second of all.
Oh, no, my gosh. Not second of all.
Listen, Cal, just be happy you in the conference, all right?
First of all, like Sherrod, when the brothers say first of all, there ain't never no second of all.
First of all.
Wrong.
Second of all, nobody cared that you
That's all. That's all I had to say. Like, wait a minute. There's supposed to be a list here, fool. You like first of all.
First of all, it's time to go. But by the time we reconvene next week, we'll decide when we're going to report. But the preseason will be over. We will be starting one of 82 games. 82 game season. I heard Joe. But until then, for Sherrod Blakely and Gary Washburn, I'm Kwani Lunis. This is A-List Podcast. Thanks for sticking with us.
The CLNS Media Network is powered by FanDuel. Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. If you place a $5 bet, that's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Ever wish you could navigate the betting field with the confidence of a pro? Enter Odds Are. They're not a sports book, but they're the sports betting advisor you always needed. It's like having a playbook for smarter bets right in your pocket. I've been absolutely loving the experience, and I think you will too, especially since Celtics All Access listeners get a 30-day free trial. Elevate your game day and join the smart betting revolution. Go get it at oddsr.com/Celtics. That's oddsr.com/Celtics.